Welcome everyone, this is the FX Masters program, lesson 11. In this lesson we're just going to continue what we're doing on lesson 10. I cut the lesson in half, so in half now, but I just didn't want to keep it longer than an hour. I think it gets too heavy for you guys. So now we have the script that will make all the duplicates for me. This can be used for other situations and other things. We'll probably use it for the elephants and the zebra and everything that you saw in the previous lesson. But now all we need to do is just recreate something like this. I will leave the details up to you as far as the motion. You can just give me anything you like. Something interesting. Now we have all the duplicates created thanks to our new script. And what we need to do now is just export this into the scene with the particle system that we're going to use, or just keep it in here. It's up to you, whatever you want. I got my serial original one, and I got all my duplicates. I'm thinking that it's best to, well, we'll use these instances as that, as what we're going to use. All right, so I'm going to create a particle system. This is going to be very quickly. Create an emitter, let's say this one. I'm going to do roughly what I have on the video that I showed you. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing. Okay, so I'm going to make something big like that. I think I had a cylinder. Now I can have any length of time that I want because I'm not tied to the animation of the animal anymore. Okay, I have my particles. I'm going to give myself to start 1,000 particles. I'm going to emit them quickly. And I'm going to give them the conserve as usual of 0.98. And I'm also, because my animation, well, now it doesn't have to start at 10, it can start at 1. Before it was starting at 10 because that was the animation of the animal that we're using. I think right now we're fine. Okay, perfect. I will advise you, just pardon the noise. There's a big truck going by. 1 second. Okay. I was going to say that I'm expecting you to play with fields beyond what I was doing in class. So we don't have to go attribute per attribute. Remember that the effects power user program goes a bit slower than this one, and it talks a bit more about certain things. But I'm saying this because I'm going to grab this field and I'm going to use something called trap inside. Actually, this is my emitter, it's not my field. Never mind. I'm going to use a field now for that. So I'm going to grab my particles. I'm going to create a volume axis, which is going to be also a cylinder, which I'm going to scale a bit further. And I'm going to grab this guy. I'm going to take the attenuation, which is fine, is off. I'm just trying to get to the same point where I was with the video that I showed you. I'm sorry. This is my third class of the day and I'm getting a bit tired, but yeah, I'm trying to get to the same point. So I'm going to grab my emitter. I don't need to see it. It kind of confuses me next to the volume axis field. It can get confusing. So I'm going to hide it. I'm going to name it just so I don't forget what it is. Emitter, is fine. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use as my, let's say think about it as a virtual fish tank. So you're going to place the particles in here. You know already to use it, so I'm going to go and skip ahead and I'm going to put some turbulence. I'm going to put a round axis activated. I'm going to put, well, let's see what it does now to my particles. As you can imagine, they move and they escape. And I don't want the sea lions to go anywhere they want. I want them to kind of stay within this area. I'm going to use it as a limit, like I said, as a virtual fish tank. So this has an option called trap inside. Trap inside, let's look for it. Where is it? Trap inside. I'm going to put 1, and that will stop the particles from escaping. Think about it as walls. You see? They bounce. Of course, this is magnified as usual to show you the effect, but you can see that they don't go away. That's what I meant by you experiment with fields beyond the classes. So probably you found this out already. If you haven't, then shame on you because you should. You should play with these things. All right, so that's cool. I'm gonna give it a bit more rotation. I'm gonna, tweak these things a little bit. So my around axis is gonna be 2. My turbulence is gonna be 0.1. I'm gonna use detail turbulence. Those are very repetitive things that we've done before. Beautiful. Because of the rotation, they get stuck on the wall. So we're gonna use attenuation. Well, first of all, we're gonna use, instead of going away from the axis, we're gonna go and try to help bringing those particles in. And it works really well. But they still tend to expand a little bit, so I'm going to use attenuation, but I'm going to invert it, as we've done before. Let's see what that does. If you feel that they're going away too much, then you need to increase a little bit your away from axis to -3, for example. Away from center, I'm going to turn it off. And see what I do. Now it's too much, you see? But this is good. This is a good test. Let it settle. And then you can use the away from axis as a value to see how deep the effect will be. They tend to come inside a little bit more. But you're starting to kind of to see what I have on my video. You see at the beginning of mine, they're big, they kind of come into the center. And that's just to show particle motion. That's what something in your demo reel should be. You should be able to showcase what you know. So, make sure that they understand, your employer or your future employer understands that you can will the particles to do whatever you want. That's basically right what we want to see when we hire someone. So I have that. Play with this and I think I keyframed the effect of the field and all. So that's good. I'm gonna grab this field. I'm gonna put it in a separate layer. Volume field is the name. It's missing an L. Volume field, done. Okay, rewind. Play, this is fine. I'm gonna hide it to have my particles. I'm gonna save this scene as lesson 11. Lesson 10 doesn't have a scene file because it's a script, remember? Perfect. Now I can grab my instances, which I need to grab all of them. Don't grab the group. If you grab the group, you're going to be instancing on every particle 39 different seals. That's not what you want. It's going to kill your computer. What you want to grab is everybody inside that group. The group is just for keeping your outliner organized. And we're going to go into the instancer. Go in here. That's good. Hit create. All right. Let's double check that our instancer has all the seals, which is good. You hit play, and they're all the same one. Because remember, and there's no animation either. You see? But you guys know how to fix this based on my previous lessons. This is very quickly fixable by going into my particles. First of all, the aim direction should be based on the velocity, and bam, you start getting something really cool already. Look at it. This is great. So the trick of this class, well, let's do a couple more things that you already know how to do. Let's go in here and let's make attributes for random scale and random, well, random scale is the only one. Random scale. Done. And we can make also another one for, let's say, what is it called, the attribute? It's called object index. So I can just make it object index, for example, OBJIND, also per particle. The mass is simple. You can copy this and randomize it. But if you want, let's do random scale first. Let's grab random scale and let's say that the biggest seal is this one, or you decide. You know how to do this. I'm going to do a random number between 0. I made a mistake with the scale. I'm thinking I'm going too fast and I made the random scale float. And that's not what I want. So I'm going to go make my things better correctly. So I'm going to have to name it something else. Random scale. That is correct. Okay, so go creation. In this ones, I'm going to scale them uniformly, not like I did with the penguins, just to do something different here. So I can just say float, and I call it $rand size, just for a different name. And that's going to be equal to a random number between 0.75 and let's say 2. You know how to do this. If you don't, you go back a couple of lessons and you'll figure out why I'm doing this. Basically, I'm creating a variable that it carries a random size, which then I can assign to my attribute here. Sorry. This is what I want. So I got to run. This variable carries a number between these two, and that's what I'm going to assign on each channel of my scale. So it's proportional scaling, but it's different each one from the other. This is done. We were talking about on the group the other day about relating size with mass, for example. Well, that works. You can just say the mass is equal to this as well. So the bigger the part, the bigger the seal, the more mass it has. And that you solve that problem really quickly. Hit edit, done. Randomize those two. That's perfect. Now, we need to set it here. Let me just rewind, hit play, and continue. And now we set the scale to random scale. And you know that we get some massive ones because I made a typo, I'm sure. I always do that. It's 0.75 to 2. I always make that mistake. Rewind and hit play. You see, never panic. Never freak out. This looks even better than what I did the other day. All right, I got that, but I don't have animation. That's the last thing to do. So to add animated objects, okay, then you need to grab we create an attribute called object index. I'm going to make a list here called creation. I'm going to make an expression on creation, I'm sorry. And I'm going to say the object index, but before I do that, I need to see the list of objects. So I'm going to grab my instancer and I'm going to see that I have from item 0 to item 38. When we did the penguins, when the color and changing the color of the penguins and all the level of detail, we had to look as well for the size of this list and see how many. In that case, we had 3. Right now we have from 0 to 38 because it's an animation cycle. So that's what we need to do. We need to go in here, grab the particles, and we're going to say that the object index is equal to a random number. Okay, let's say 39. Remember, if I don't specify the bottom one, by default Maya will grab 0. So I think it's time to start typing things like this. So hit edit, and you're done. Okay, so that won't do anything just at the moment, but it will grab here. If you go to the instancer now and you go to your, in here. If you go to object index now, you can specify object index in here, and you get a different one on each. So at least each one picked a different position. It already looks more natural, but they're not moving. Yeah. So the last thing you need to fix in here or change is just go back to the instancer node in here and make sure that on cycle you go sequential. This will tell Maya to go and wherever it begins, it go and cycle through based on frames. You can do it based on seconds. It will be slower, meaning that it will go from one to the next after 1 second. The idea is to keep it in frames. And you will go in and switch and pick from each different one. That's why we duplicate it. Okay, let's see. All right, well, I don't know why it's doing that crappy selection thing, but it looks like now each one of them has a different position in the animation. Let me just rewind it here. Let me just save it. It's interesting why it's selecting things like that. It's a bit weird, but it's animated. It's a bit confusing to the eye, right? But let me just double check in here. Cycle step is fine. This is in frames, sequential, geometry in degrees. Everything is okay. Just a bit of a glitch. Anyway, I will save the scene. I will hide these instances that I don't need to see because they're confusing. The original seal doesn't have to be there anymore. I can get rid of it. Let's try again. All right, I'm just looking at the results. And I do feel it repetitive. I feel like they're all picking the same thing. So I don't like that. Let me just quickly check something in here. Cycle sequential. All right, let me see what it does now. Okay, this is better, but it's not really animated. Let's try something new. Let's go in. Because right now here you don't have any control over the object index. Yes, it's a variable that you have here. And it's at the beginning done something. You know, it's picking a random one from 0 to 39, which is what you want. So each one of them at the beginning will have different animation. Just for the sake of it, I'm just going to save the scene and open the one I did for the testing, for the video. Let me just find it. Sea lion duplicates could be. Probably this one, let's see. Okay, this is my scene. By the way, this blue hue thing is just a fluid container with no animation, no simulation. This is just meant for aesthetics of the video. We're not going to talk about fluids yet. But if you know something, if you're watching the FX Power user, then you can do something like this yourself very quickly. But what I want to do is grab my instancer and compare. And one different, and I will let you do that yourself. On the FTP, I will upload 2 different textures. And we can actually look at them here. Hypershade. If you see the textures, I have this one, which is seal dark and seal normal, the light one, let's say. Those are 2 textures that they came when I bought the geometry. So I'm going to upload them both so you can use them both and have a bit of variation. So you're varying the size. And what I did is very simple. I created two different instances, you see? Instancer 1 and instancer 2. Each one has one set of seals, okay, instance, you know that. It's just repeating things twice, so you have double the seals to choose from. But as far as the expressions go, it's just the same. Random scale, random mass, random start is the name of the thing I'm using. And random start is the same. It's a random number between 0 and 38. So the expression is exactly the same as my other example. My instancer is using the same thing, the list. It's using cycle as sequential in frames. That's just something blame on my other scene that is just selecting things over and over again. but then you get animation on each one. So the assignment is to create something interesting, any shape you like. If you look into the FlexPower user program, there is lessons where I talk about the curve flow tool. When you can have the particles flow along a curve. If you wanted just to have them follow a path, or you can just experiment with something like this. But it's basically that. Those are the steps. Okay, you select all your duplicates that you created with the script. You specify that it will cycle sequentially through them based on frames. And then the expression, you make an attribute called random star or random whatever. You call it whatever you want, but it's just a float per particle. And basically you're telling them on creation to pick any frame they like and go from there. There's nothing on runtime, you see? So it's quite simple. From that point, then you move them with fields, everything you know you run already a lot. And I think you can give me some interesting results. So when I finish this lesson, I will upload the geometry of the seal, which is going to be the one without fixes. So you go through that yourself. It's this guy, which has a pivot point. And let me show you. Pivot point where it's not supposed to be. It's placed where it's not supposed to be placed. So you follow all the steps from my lessons, okay? So everything will be on the FTP soon. And well, with that, I'll see you in the next lesson. Well, thank you very much.